What is up, guys? Rickhack is here going over high-end attachments in The Division. Now, there are two ways to get high-end attachments right now in the game. The first way is to just get lucky, to be awarded a high-end attachment as a random drop. So if you're in the Dark Zone, for example, and you kill a boss, he has a chance to drop a high-end item, and that high-end item might just be a high-end magazine attachment, for example. Now, very importantly, the day I'm releasing this video, there has been drastic changes to the drop rates within the Division, and I'm going to link a video I made detailing all of these changes in a description down below. So if you're unaware of these massive changes to the Dark Zone's loot system, I would definitely go and watch that video. It is very important information. Now, aside from that, if you're unlucky like me, you'll have to make your own high-end attachments. Now, to do this, you'll need to purchase, firstly, the blueprints, the high-end blueprints of the appropriate attachment that you want to make from the appropriate vendor. The easiest place is from the special items vendor, which is located to the left as soon as you've gone up the stairs to your tech wing in your base of operations. He is selling the high-end blueprints for multiple different attachments, all purchasable with Phoenix credits. Now, once you've purchased a high-end attachment blueprint with Phoenix credits, you're now going to actually have to go and make that high-end attachment. And to do so, you're going to have to utilize high-end materials. So it's quite a substantial investment in order to go out and get your own high-end scope. For example, you're going to have to get to level 30 so you can utilize Phoenix credits, get enough Phoenix credits in order to buy the blueprints from the special items vendor, and by the way, the blueprints are going to cost you around 75-85 Phoenix credits, and upon buying the blueprint, you're actually going to have to go then and craft this attachment with high-end materials, around 5 high-end gun materials, and around 3 high-end tools as well. And with such a substantial investment, that's why we're discussing today, is it worth it? Now, to answer this question, we first have to look at what makes high-end attachments high-end. What makes them different from purple attachments, for example? Well, the difference between purple and high-end attachments lie purely in statistics. Let's say we're talking about muzzle brakes as attachments. A purple muzzle brake can only hypothetically spawn with up to, let's say, 25% more stability. And that's it. You can never find a purple muzzle brake with 26% stability. Again, this is hypothetical. But with a high-end muzzle brake, it can spawn with higher than the absolute maximum for a purple. So a high-end muzzle brake can spawn with up to 30% increased stability. A great example of this is when I made my high-end magazine attachment. It came with a magazine size increase of 94.5%, whereas for purple magazine attachments, the most I'd ever gotten is up to 82% increase to magazine size. Now, although some of you may have found purple magazine attachments that have more than 82%, there is no way that a purple magazine attachment can spawn with a 94.5% increase to magazine size. The high-end attachments will just have, again, better stats overall when compared to their purple counterparts. And in fact, someone tweeted me a picture of a high-end magazine that they had, which had a 101% increase to magazine size. So why is this important? Well, it's important because, again, the rarity of attachments are determined purely by how good their stats are. So generally, when you get a high-end attachment, it's just going to be outright better than the purple version of it. This is not necessarily the case with high-end weapons. High-end weapons may spawn with a tiny bit better stats, but the main difference between purple weapons and high-end weapons is that the high-end weapons can have 3 perks, while the purple weapons only spawn with 2. So generally, high-end weapons are going to be better, but sometimes you're going to have purple weapons that are better than the high-ends. I have a purple classic AK-47 that's better than a high-end classic AK-47, and this does happen. Whereas for the attachments, that's usually not the case. High-end attachments are generally strict upgrades. So it then begs the question, well, how much of an upgrade are we getting with these high-end attachments? Well, to answer that question, let's take a look at a different high-end attachment that I made, the CQB SS Scope. Now, this increases headshot damage by 20.5% and critical hit chance by 6.5%. And luckily, I had another purple sight that increased the same two factors. The T2 Micro Red Dot Sight. This increases headshot damage by 17.5% and critical hit chance by 6%. So again, as you can see, the high-end scope just increases the percentages of these factors by more. So how much of an upgrade is a high-end attachment? Well, with the T2 Micro Red Dot Sight, my damage output for my military RPK-74 was around 110,000 damage. Now when I changed to my high-end CQB SS scope, my DPS rose to almost 112,000 damage. Now I did the math, and this works out to a 1.21% increase in damage per second. So around 80 Phoenix credits and several high-end materials later, and you'll increase your DPS by 1.21%. That is not a substantial reward for your investment. And although it might be tempting to go after a high-end magazine attachment that increases your magazine size by 101%, that's likely not going to happen. And in fact, most of the time, you're not even going to get a mix of stats that you really like. For my high-end muzzle brake, I was really looking for a muzzle brake that increased accuracy or stability, and then also increased critical hit chance. That's what I'm really looking for in a muzzle brake. The high-end version that I made didn't come with this increase. So essentially, I kind of just wasted those high-end weapon parts. But again, we have to look at the positives. That CQB SS scope, for example, that is purely better than any other scope I have if I'm trying to increase those factors. If I now get a new gun, any gun I get, I'm probably going to put that scope on over any of the purples I have, because again, the stats are just purely better on the high-end versions. So are high-end attachments worth buying? Well, I think that answer really depends on where you are in the game, and I do think for the majority of players, the answer is going to be no, not yet. A lot of players who may have gotten lucky in the Dark Zone and gotten a high-end weapon that they like might be tempted to go and buy a high-end attachment right away to complement that weapon. However, if you're interested in pure numbers, you're probably actually better off getting some high-end gear, because a good high-end backpack, for example, with a substantial increase to your firearm skill and a couple of slots for mods that are going to increase your firearms by even more, is probably going to do much more for your DPS than any single attachment would. So my recommendation would be to hold off on buying high-end attachments until you firstly have some good high-end weapons. And by the way, a great first high-end buy would be the Vector 45 ACP blueprint, sold again by the special items vendor in your tech wing. And secondly, some good high-end gear pieces. You should purchase high-end attachments when you're nearing the end of your build, you've gotten tons of loot, and you're just trying to squeeze every last amount, every last percent of damage out of your build. Now that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found this helpful. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating or sharing this video. Now if you want to see more Division content, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day. The reason I wanted to present you guys with this weapon is because it has just consistently surpassed my expectations. I have been always impressed by the performance of this gun, so I wanted to showcase it to you guys because I think most of you should definitely be looking out for these Vector variants. And remember, that's an important factor. The first wave Vector 45 ACP is the best version of the Vector that I have gotten. You don't have to be looking for this specific variant. You don't have to get another first wave Vector 45 ACP.